Hall of Fame weekend conclude with Andre Johnson finally being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and some more takeaways from the first preseason game that took place with the loss against the Chicago Bears.
The gold jacket looked good on him.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this Monday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to all of our first-time listeners and viewers. While you are here, we're going to be excited to talk about Andre Johnson, but we need a few favors. Please just subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. And to all of my players from the Himalayas every day is coming back to listen to Cody and myself talk Texans. Thank you guys for joining the show once again. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texas Credential Media member, but Detroit News very own Cody. It's going to be hard. You know, I've been saying Sports Illustrated for so long.
I know,
Detroit
right?
News is on. Cody Davis, welcome to the show, man. Today's episode is brought to you by, drum roll, please, FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Playoffs are winding down in other sports, but football is kicking up. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Cody, take us away.
And on this Monday installment of Locked On Texans, we're going to conclude our Hall of Fame coverage with a look back at Andre Johnson finally getting enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And not only that, we're also going to revisit the Houston Texans' first preseason game that took place Thursday night. Of course, it was featured in the Hall of Fame game against the Chicago Bears. And then we're going to close out this installment of Locked On Texans having a little fun at the players who made the top 100 and the players that I guess you could say got snubbed from the list of the top 100 when you look at the Houston Texans. Which, by the way,
snub.
I do want to say this. The Texans was represented well by the players that they had on the top 100. And I'm not going to include Stephon Diggs and Danielle Hunter in this because, of course, this was based off of, the 2023 season. But even when you take a look at the players who did not make it, John, I think anybody can make an argument that the players that didn't make it, Will Anderson Jr., Nico Collins, they could have definitely made the top 100 list. And then when you take a look at CJ number 20, you can make an argument that that's still too low for him. But we'll talk about that to close out the show. But talking about Houston Texans, great, man. You cannot have this conversation, any conversation, without mentioning the likes of Andre Johnson, who was finally inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame Saturday.
Can I say this really quick?
Go ahead.
Andre Johnson getting elected to be in the Hall of Fame, shrine his name into the Hall of Fame, had nothing to do with nobody else but Andre Johnson putting in his own work and reaping the benefits of a successful, respectable career from a player that represented this city. I think, better than many athletes have represented the city of Houston. Didn't have to do with anybody that held votes. Didn't have to do with anybody that wasn't up there. That moment was for Andre Johnson and nobody else.
Ooh, some shots fired, and I love it.
I'm just saying, man, we got to let these athletes who work their ass off their entire lives. It ain't just a career thing. You're working your tail off when you're in middle school. And he's from Florida, man. They come out just like Texas and Louisiana. They come out playing football.
Yes, sir.
That moment was a moment for a man in Andre Johnson that, in my opinion, top 7 receiver of all time. Could be higher if he would have had better quarterback play, right? That moment was for Andre Johnson, for AJ 80. And I specifically remember the first time I met him was at a Toys R Us and I'm telling my age. This is about 20 years ago. He used to do his toy drive every Christmas. So it's not about nobody else, man. That's his hard work based off his own merit. Nobody else needed a shout out in that moment outside of maybe his family, and he's gonna recognize the people who he wants to recognize. If you didn't get recognized, that means you ain't matter that much to him.
Exactly. And look, I 100% agree with everything that you said. And look, I think in total, the 2024 Hall of Fame enshrinement might have been one of, if not my favorite Hall of Fame enshrinement that I've ever seen. Because, and look, it might be because I'm a little biased. I mean, I literally grew up watching Andre Johnson. I mean, I told us the Sergeant, he always had fun. Me and Andre Johnson came to Houston in the same year. He got here in April. I got here in June. And literally, at a young age, just watching that young man literally put not only this franchise but the city on the map. Our good friend Jonathan Alexander did an awesome feature story on Andre Johnson's career. He had an opportunity to talk to AJ80 one-on-one, and the one thing that I love most about that article was him telling the story of how Andre Johnson, his number one goal was to make sure that this franchise was respected. And look, I just want to just share some of my favorite moments of Andre Johnson speaking. First and foremost, I love, and he talked about his teammates and current Houston Texans, giving them a shout out, especially when he said to the current Houston Texans, some of you guys might be up here a little bit soon. There's a guy that was number 7 and a guy that was number 51. I think they've already got a good start in being, part of that next group of Texans that's going to be into the Hall of Fame. Speaking of next group, when he talked about his former set of teammates, there was a guy that used to wear number 99.
Yeah.
They're part of this shirt right here. He's definitely going to be.
If you guys are listening, Cody has an Andre Johnson and JJ Watt GOAT shirt on.
Yes, sir. And I felt like it was fitting to wear it on this day because, one guy just got enshrined and another guy within the next 3 years, he's definitely going to be enshrined. But, I love how Andre Johnson, shouted out his former teammates and the current Houston Texans because it showcased his love for this organization and even with the McNair family as well. Another favorite moment of mine, he was talking about the 2002 Hurricanes and how he boldly proclaimed that is the best college football team of all time. And at that moment, John, listeners and viewers, I'm not lying.
Oh, man.
I said, man, I wish I could take that team and the 2019 LSU Tigers and see who will come away victorious. And I instantly thought about Andre Johnson on the island with Derek Stingley Jr. Who will win that matchup? I don't know. But I love that, man. And then it also showcased like that moment with the Miami Hurricanes, man. Look, regardless of where you rank them in terms of the greatest college football team in history, they're definitely top 10. In a lot of people's cases like mine, they're definitely top 5. And of course, my favorite moment of all was Andre Johnson talking about his family, to his mom, to his daughter, to his uncle, rest in peace, who is no longer here. Even, his high school football coach. But the one moment that really, touched my heart, so to say, was when he was talking about meeting his sister for the very first time at the age of 21. It came due to a phone call with his sister telling him that, their father unfortunately passed away. And the fact that he didn't know he had a sister at the time, had that phone call, and them two have built a very special bond ever since that phone call. Says a lot. His sister is April, by the way. And man, it was just an overall great. It was just an overall great moment to watch Andre Johnson. John, listeners and viewers, I don't know about you, but every time they were showing those highlights of Andre Johnson catching, touchdown passes inside Reliance Stadium at the time, man, it just brought me back to my childhood, man, and just remember watching this guy. And look, Andre Johnson said it best. I'm happy as hell right now, man. And he deserved every single minute of it, man. Shout out to AJ80, man. One of my all-time favorite athletes, period.
Yeah, man. And also, talking about that U team, Devin Hester got in too. I know he's not a Texan.
Yeah.
But he was a Chicago Bear. They played with the Hall of Fame game, of course. Shout out to Devin Hester. This is just me. I'm not even talking Texans right now, guys, and I'm sorry.
Just football.
It's just football. Devin Hester was one of those players because I don't know how much of the young generation knows about Devin Hester, whether it may be, college or just his time in the NFL. I don't think I've seen Deion Sanders excited about a player more than Devin Hester whenever he would return kicks. And we all know how much of a character Deion is. But Deion used to love him some Devin Hester. And everybody did, man. So I'm glad that Miami team got 2 new members into the Hall of Fame. What's my guy? Michael Irvin was ear to ear smiling. He's in the Hall of Fame for the Dallas Cowboys. He went to the U. That 2001 team, Miami, he thinks is the greatest team of all time.
Yeah.
I would like to argue that you can argue that with Andre Johnson, man. The Miami team, don't
say it.
The VY Texas team, the 2019
I knew you were about to say it.
LSU Tigers team. Man, one of those years when Alabama was just physically better than everybody was that Alabama has a team.
Is that the Tua-led Bama team?
No. This is when they had AJ McCarron.
And if we keep it
one of those Tua teams is up there. It was nice.
Yeah, and if we keeping it a buck, that championship team 2016, 2017, when Ford was leading the way for Clemson, that team was pretty damn good too.
That was a good team.
I mean, I don't think it's on the level of.
But the thing about Miami,
19 LSU and Miami,
that Miami team. Okay, Clinton Portis, Najee. I'm finna name off all the guys that went to the NFL. Willis McGahee and Clinton Portis was in your backup. Was your running back group, along with Frank Gore, who was a freshman that year. Willis McGahee and Frank Gore were freshmen that year, and Clinton Portis was a junior with 1,200 yards. So that's 2,000 yards on the ground right there. Ken Dorsey was your quarterback. Andre Johnson was a receiver. Darryl Jones. Jeremy Shockey. I think Greg Olsen was on that year, the following year. Kellen Winslow was a freshman tight end. I'm looking at this thing. Jonathan Vilma, you know about Jonathan Vilma.
Bro.
Philip Buchanan, Ed Reed, Antrell Rowe. That was a stacked team.
Oh my goodness.
That was a stacked team. But Andre Johnson making it to the Hall of Fame, man. You know what that signals, though? It just signals some more, I think, light on this franchise. This is the youngest franchise in the NFL. Andre Johnson was their first pick in their 3rd year into existence, I believe.
No, I think it was their second 2003 draft.
Second year into existence. And 20 years later, I think it just shows like this is we're getting up, and they got the investment paid off during his career. But for the franchise, okay, we have a Hall of Famer. We are here now because they hadn't made it to the conference championship game yet. They hadn't won a Super Bowl yet. Like when the Carolina Panthers made it to the NFL, they made it to the Super Bowl fairly younger in their existence.
Then Jacksonville too?
I think Jacksonville.
Oh, but that's just the conference game. Because I know they went to the conference game like
maybe
a couple years after their existence.
Yeah. I know the Carolina Panthers did. So now you're looking at the Houston Texans. They have to wait 20 years, and they still haven't made it to a conference game. And like I said, you say a few dark years, I'm going back to the Sage Rosenfeld helicopter days. I'm going back to the get David Carr out of Houston days. Like that used to be printed on newspapers when newspapers was still the source of information for teams, right? So there was some dark years, more dark years or below average years than better years. But for Houston, this is like the final payoff of their investment into a young man that carried this franchise with respect. It's like, you get an unexpected paycheck for $1 million from something you did 30 years ago, from an investment you placed 30 years ago. You forgot about it. This is what that's like. And I think for Houston, that's a great thing.
We talked about Andre Johnson, but now we need to fast forward and talk about the 2024 Houston Texans and revisit their preseason loss against the Chicago Bears. Not a lot to take away from that game. However, I do believe that the results of that game will set this organization up for more success for the 2024 season.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Listen, guys, when your schedule gets packed out, you got kids' activities, you got big work projects. Trust me, you got a co-host moving, you got big work projects, you got a baby going crazy crying, and you still try to keep it all together. You got so much going on. It's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when you know what makes us happy, sometimes it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Sometimes we can't make it to the office. Well, you can do it over the phone. And it isn't a long process to get to a session. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist that fits you, and you can switch at any time for no additional charge. Never skip leg day, never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. So you guys had an opportunity to listen to Cody and Sarge break down their game, the first game breakdown, in a sense, of the 2024-25 NFL season for the Houston Texans. I was not able to make it, had a wedding to attend. However, Cody, I think it's important to look at where does Houston go after their first preseason game. And for me personally, before I get started, do you have any particulars that an area of focus Houston should have moving forward, or is it just kind of retooling and getting ready for the next week?
It's retooling and getting ready for the next week. I would like to say on the offensive side of the ball, and I know I didn't mention this Friday, but on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, the only lone negative that I did have was John Mechie. I was disappointed in his performance because I'm watching him doing OTAs, I'm watching him doing mandatory minicamp, I'm watching him doing training camp. I mean, 6 out of the 10 days doing training camp, he was making a name for himself. And the fact that he didn't do anything during the first preseason game, which I thought, put it like this, the game that Xavier Hutchinson had is the game that I thought and wanted to see for John Mechie. But hopefully he gets an opportunity to retool, and maybe we'll get more of that John Mechie game in game 2 on Friday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But other than that, man, I mean, the lone concern that I have from this first preseason game, and I don't really think it's an overreaction, but it's just that defensive backfield. When you take a look at the secondary unit, like I mentioned on Friday, the Texans better not hope none of their starters get hurt, because if they do, they could really be in trouble, because I did not see nobody in that secondary outside of Kalen Bullock that made me say the Houston Texans have dealt with their defensive backfield. Yeah. Outside of that, I loved everything else that I saw.
For me, I think when I look at where does Houston go from here with the expectations and the depth this team has, number one, it was very beneficial for Houston to play in that Hall of Fame game. I think so. I don't think we need to overreact to anything. To your point, Cody, John Mechie, he only had 2 targets, caught 1 for 4 passes, as opposed to a Xavier Hutchinson who had more targets and more catches and had more time out there to, do so. I saw a tweet saying Davis Mills could go for a 3rd-round pick right now. Houston should trade it. And I'm like, y'all, Mills ain't going for a 3rd rounder based on a Hall of Fame game playing, playing against guys that, may not make the team. Now, Mills did have some good moments. Him faking out that defender from the edge to make that big play.
Look like a mini version of Mike Vick out there.
I was about to say Davis Vick, but Moments like that is encouraging to see, because just a few days ago I talked about how I believe Davis Mills looked like he's regressed at practice. And on the flip side, we talk about practice and OTAs and how you mentioned John Mechie. He's been a training camp star to this point. You're disappointed in not seeing him have the moment that we expected to see him to have. And Xavier Hutchinson had that moment, and now you're looking at, okay, who's going to be the wide receiver 5 or 6 on this team? Will it be a fight for wide receiver 4? What I am confident is Houston will put the best guys out there. So if it's not Mechie, who's going to be the best guy out there? I guess we can look at that as a storyline, but I'm not panicking to that right now, honestly, guys. I think the Hall of Fame game was a good way for us to evaluate what we have in front of us and just talk about it. With that said, what is next for this team? I think, first of all, they got to keep stacking good moments for the players that need those reps while competing for starting roles, and for the guys that won't be starting but are expected to have an impact on this team. And Cody, that brings me back to your DB point. Going into game 2, which is where they're going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, there got to be some of those guys in that DB room that just performs better. And if not, this is a perfect time after game 2 to evaluate not only your roster, but the rest of the league. You start making calls around and say, man, who's potentially going to get cut, right? Who cannot make a roster that we feel like has the talent to make our roster? But I like what D'Amico Ryan said about both Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs. Said that he really liked both Green and Juice, what they were able to do up front. They played around 20 snaps, and I thought they really did a nice job going out and showing who they can be. I love that, who they can be. Still a lot to improve on, but I like the aggressiveness from Kenyon Green. I like how he got up to the second level. I like the way that they're finishing blocks. So it's definitely a big step in the right direction for both guys when it comes to continuing to improve our front and how important the front is to be able to run their football. That is still a point of emphasis, guys, and also the protection aspect of it. For me, guys, I looked at Kenyon Green getting to the second level as fluid and aggressive as he did as probably the highlight for me on that day, for that game, along with the inside chemistry with him and Juice. I want to see more of it, especially against the starters. They got Pittsburgh coming up. I don't know if Keanu Benton will play, but that's a big body. That'll be a good task for those two young men. But both Juice Scruggs and Kenyon Green were robbed of time last year. Green out for the entire season. Juice missed the first start of the season. He did finish the season out, which is a good thing. But to see them get a chance to rock with each other on the field and make some good plays, I think was very encouraging. And it's promising to see them and see them do it well. Now, to go back to John Mechie, didn't sound like D'Amico Ryans was necessarily happy with his performance as well. Got the quote here. He showed up during camp just playing really fast, playing decisive, and we've seen that during the first couple of weeks of camp. Just want to continue to see that in the game. So I don't think there's a doubt about it that they need to see that from him in the live game. Those reps, those one-on-ones, some of those big practices during 11-on-11 drills, team drills, they do want to see that in the game, but I don't think it's time to overreact from it right now.
If Mechie doesn't perform in the second preseason game, and you know me, I don't want to overreact to Mechie's non-existent against the Bears on Thursday. But after listening to what Coach D'Amico Ryans had to say, and if he doesn't perform in the second preseason game, could we be looking at a situation where John Mechie would probably be a guy on the bubble at that point? Because once again, and I know, Sarge had disagreed with this statement last, Friday when we did the recap, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I look at Xavier Hutchinson and the way he balled out. I'm like, if he continue to do that, he's definitely going to make a spot on this roster. One of Noah Brown or Robert Woods will make this roster. I still say one or the other. It's probably leaning more so towards Noah Brown at this point. But then if there's one more wide receiver that they're looking at, Ben Skoranek, he has looked good doing OTAs. He has been a camp favorite as of right now during training camp, and he made 2 good catches and 2 good plays during that preseason game. Plus, you're looking at a situation where not only can he give you something in the passing game, but he's a damn good blocker as a wide receiver. And like I mentioned, even if they don't find him a role with the wide receiving core, I'm pretty sure he could shake up that fullback room as well.
That's a good question. Because I go back to what D'Amico said, just an extension of it. Just want to see that in the game. Where the game was yesterday, we'll see how he improves to next week. And that's a lot of guys. It's their first one out. It's all about, okay, what's your starting point? So I don't want to put a lot into the game. I just want to put a lot into how guys respond the next time. So I do think it's important and he said it don't matter if it's a D-line position, the receiver, every position across the board. How can guys improve on what they put out there on the film yesterday? So I'm excited ahead of this week to see our guys improve. They want to see him do it. There's been a campaign all year. I think spearheaded by C.J. Stroud as quarterback. Those two are very close. Don't forget about Minchie. Don't forget about Minchie.
I was part of that campaign.
Right. I am partially as well, and I think he just was kind of forgettable, but it was a Hall of Fame game.
Mm-hmm.
And he only had 2 targets. And he caught one of those targets. As opposed to an Xavier Hutchinson who had more targets. Vince Karonic, who had more targets, had more playing time. If I could find a snap count for John, let me see how many snaps John Minchie played really quick.
While you look at that snap count, is that an indictment of, Davis Mills going more so to Hutchinson, or is that an indictment of John Mechie with his inability of not getting open? And I say indictment because a lot of times when we raved about John Mechie, we saw the explosiveness doing those 1-on-1 plays, doing them 7-on-7 plays, doing those 11-on-11 drills in practice. And now you're looking at a situation where he cannot create those same separations against the opposing team, where that's probably their second or third string DB.
Yeah, I can't overreact to it because it's a Hall of Fame game. Like if Houston, if this was Houston's first preseason game, but it wasn't a Hall of Fame game, like if they were getting ready to play this week, and that was the performance, then I would have more of an eyebrow raise. But to answer your question about him being on the bubble, and John Mechie did play in 33 snaps. So I mean, Xavier Hutchinson only played in 27. Vince Karonic played in 30, so they all played right around the same amount. I just can't overreact, but if he doesn't come out and have a better moment in the game against the Steelers, will he be on the bubble to be released or traded? He's still a former second-round pick who missed an entire year. And I think Houston would like to get some type of value back for him. And I think right now the only value that they could probably really get is him playing for them, right?
Yeah.
And them finding a role for him. Another takeaway in terms of where does Houston go after preseason game 1, Cam Akers looked good. Cam Akers looked good. If their running back room is Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, and Cam Akers, I wouldn't be mad at that. Also, where do they go? Cam Akers still have that effective one cut and get upfield. Still very good in the open field as well. Can RB2 be up for discussion? No, but I don't want to overreact. Cam just got here. I do think this upcoming game against the Pittsburgh Steelers will tell us a lot more about this team. And we all love sports. Thankfully, football is around the corner. Actually, it's here. NCAA is out. We just had the Hall of Fame game. We got more preseason this week. High school football is about to start kicking off, but you can't bet on that, right? You can bet on NFL and college, and you can do so on FanDuel. And this summer, before the summer ends, I want to let you guys know about how FanDuel has been hooking up all their customers with a boost or a bonus every day. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, Nico Collins, not making top 100 after being one of the best receivers in the league last year?
No, Will Anderson Jr.
Will Anderson Jr. not making the top 100?
And even if you want to extend it, Derek Stingley Jr.
not making it. And let me take it a step further. I think Titus Howard just got a 71 rating on Madden.
The Madden
CJ
ratings.
Stroud was an 81.
I thought it was an 83. It's 81.
He's an 81 on Madden.
How?
It's just what's.
You know what? I think
it's kind of thrown off by that Madden one. Hey, listen, Titus Howard, if you boycott Madden this year, and every year we find a reason to say we're boycotting Madden, but eventually we buy the game, we play the game. So I am expecting to see Titus Howard ask for people PSN numbers so they can play each other online. But I'm not mad at him boycotting to start the year off because that's just some. Blake Fisher has a better rating than Titus Howard, and no disrespect to Blake, but he ain't played a snap in the NFL.
I mean, from the Madden ratings, but more so the NFL top 100 list, man. I think the only thing that that they got right was placing Laramie Tunsil 71. And I even think Tunsil probably could have been higher had he not had to battle an ongoing knee injury throughout his entire season. And I know some people, was looking at Laramie Tunsil saying, man, I think that might be a slight decline in his play. Well, that was the reason why. Now he got that cleaned up. He's still, top 3 tackle in the game, in my opinion. But the fact that, first of all, let's just look at the players that made the top 100 list. You got Laramie Tunsil at 71, Danielle Hunter at 68, Stephon Diggs at 56. But I want to exclude them from the list because that's based off of 2023. One was in Minnesota, one was in Buffalo. Then you got CJ Stroud at 20. John, I love seeing CJ at 20, but you could definitely make the argument that that's still too low for CJ. That's how good his rookie season was.
I thought Danielle Hunter, and he didn't get ranked in 2023, but I thought 68 was too low. I thought he should have been higher on the list. Honestly.
I mean, 16 and a half sacks, you should get more. But look, my biggest thing was the players that got snubbed. Nico, Derek Stingley Jr., Will Anderson Jr., especially Will. How in the
Especially Will. No, especially Nico.
How in the heck? First of all, Nico should have been a Pro Bowl last year. But how in the heck can you do a list of the top 100 players and exclude those 3 guys from the list? Derek Stingley Jr., when healthy, was arguably one of the top cornerbacks last season. And if the fact because he missed 5-6 games due to the hamstring injury, maybe if you want to say that played a big hand into it, okay, I get it, I understand it. But the fact that you did a full list with Nico and Will Anderson Jr., it did not make no sense to me. Will Anderson within his first season has already established himself as one of the best pass rushers in the game. You go back and take a look at what he did last year. Wasn't he already top 5 in double team as a rookie? Come on, man. How did not deserve a place in the top 100?
Derek Stingley, I thought should have gotten into the top 100.
But like I say, but if you want to make the argument that he didn't play enough games or whatever the case might be, I will give you that. Okay, fine. But Nico, a guy who damn near had 1,300 yards last season.
I think so. Let's look at this. Let's look at it this way, because that vote is based off your peers in the NFL, not media. So CJ being high at 20 and Nico not being on the list, I wonder if that's just NFL players thinking that's how good CJ Stroud is. Because
I say no.
that's the
Because
pure
Nico
vote.
showed potential. Nico showed potential before playing with CJ. The only thing that stopped him really was the injuries. Yeah, you could say quarterback play, whatever the case might be.
But
he
mention that. Look,
okay, you can do it, but I'm just saying there was moments during Nico Collins' first 2 years where we looked at that young man and said, man, if he can stay healthy, he can definitely be something special in the league. Did quarterback play something in it? Yeah, hell yeah, it did. But there was still moments where Nico made plays before he teamed up with CJ. Now, of course, you teamed up with CJ, you stay healthy. That's the reason why we're having this argument. But even when you take a look at the fact that you're looking at him playing with CJ, there were still moments where a majority of those plays was just Nico just being that damn good and that damn better than the opposing DB that was trying to defend him. Plain and simple. Same thing with Will Anderson Jr. What's the knock against Will Anderson not being on the top 100 list? So to prove my point even more, even if you want to say that Nico had that career year because of CJ, I give you that. But what is the definition and why did Will Anderson Jr. not make the top 100? That's what I don't understand.
In fairness, again, this is peer voted, but Patrick Mahomes was not number one on that list.
He shouldn't have been. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, even though he won another Super Bowl, whoop-de-doo, Patrick Mahomes last season, that was, I mean, look, I hate to say this, but, I mean, it wasn't a Mahomes type of year. He wasn't Mahomes like he was in, 2020, 2021. You can look at that. Yeah, the man did his thing. I mean, I think the best quarterback last year was Lamar Jackson, depending on how the playoffs played out. Why are you looking at me like, I mean, the man was MVP, but I just don't understand how you take a look at this top 100 list and you leave off Will, Nico, and Stingley. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe there's a secret. You can't have X amount of players from the same team make a list unless they win the Super Bowl or whatever. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Daniil Hunter was too low. I thought so. Thank you guys for watching today's episode.
But was CJ at 20 too low? That's the next biggest question. Like, think about it. Think about it. The quarterbacks that was, the one quarterback that was rated over him was Dak Prescott at 16. Do you flip that? And I've always respected Dak Prescott, regardless of what I care about that stupid blue and silver star. Dak had a good year last year. But so did CJ. Do we flip that? I'll flip it.
Again, it's peer voted. So maybe their thought process could be, I don't know, but it's voted on by the NFL players. So maybe they don't view Nico as that guy. And so maybe for Nico, it's important for him to just go shut him up.
Another argument real quick. I know we got to go. Jalen Hurts is 15. We just had that conversation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. CJ was too low. CJ was too low.
That's what I'm saying. Hey. We just had that conversation a few weeks ago. Josh Allen was 12. Josh Allen
being 12, I'm not mad at that. And I'm not a huge Josh Allen fan, but I'm not mad at that.
They hating on the Texans, man. Houston versus everybody, man. 2024. That's the model.
They got the schedule to do it. They got a tough schedule, so let's see. Cracking. Thank y'all for watching today's episode. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, it's Cody COTY DAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.